Yes, my darling. Yes, I used to be little just like you. Yes, I played with all the other kids too.
I was born in Elmira, so I've known Dina since the 50s. Dina's a very interesting person.
Dina Jacobson, yeah, Dina, oh man, she's great. 90 years old now, spunkiest person you'll meet.
She's an enigma.
She said that after the Holocaust, she doesn't believe in God. She doesn't believe in God.
She certainly has plenty of reason to hate people, but she just sort of portrays this kindness to people. And I wonder if that's maybe something that's just inborn in her, and maybe that's why she was one of the survivors.
What would I do in that situation? How would I act? To be next in line for that gas chamber? I don't know what I would do.
We don't know how she gets through every day.
Religion means a great deal to her, but she has a problem with God. And God knows. That's understandable.
Maybe the reason she lived was to share her story with the world.
The first thing survivors can do is to say they have told their story. Our task is to find a way of transmitting, understanding, creating with this material, and it's going to be available to kids in ways on iPads and in all sorts of ways that they can understand it. Our mission is to take that story and deepen the ethical consciousness of humanity. That's not an easy task because we don't live in an easy world.
Looking ahead to the end of the world, riding the train with a beautiful girl. Everything changes, everything dies, dreams rattle around inside.
My name is Joe. My name is Joe Crookson. I'm a songwriter.
Everything broken, be alright.
My passion in life is writing songs.
And I still love you.
Over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, I've had a whole interest in hearing people's stories, finding out who they are, where they've come from, and then writing original songs based on those stories. It actually started with my grandfather, Joe Gannap. This one day where I'm at home in Northeast Ohio, and he says, let's go out in the garage and I have some stories I want to tell you.
My baby girl was born in 1943, the year before the Navy shipped me out and overseas.
And he told me about being based on Tinian Island in the South Pacific, and told me that him and his battalion guys built the runways that the Enola Gay took off from when it flew over Hiroshima.
We never knew what the runways were for. They said our job would be the one to end the war.
He's got this story inside of him, and he never talks about it. And right at that moment, I knew I would write a song about it. It took me about 3 years to write it. He never heard it. He lived another 2 years. He lived till he was 97 years old, and he never heard the song.
Yes, my darling, yes, I used to be little like you.
Most people have some story. We all have something that's an experience that has helped shape us.
It doesn't look like that. Why? And that other lady has her arm around him.
I remember many nights that my parents had nightmares, so
Screaming, waking up screaming.
Screaming nightmares. So as a child, that was my normal.
Nighttime is the worst. Nighttime, I go through everything but in Auschwitz. I saw this every half hour. The trains came in, and I saw the people going into the gas chamber, and I wanted to go too. I didn't want to live that way.
So I felt, rightly or wrongly, that they needed protecting, that they had been through enough, that everything had to be okay from now on.
So you hear that all right? That sounds good, huh?
Joe Crookston is a singer-songwriter who transplanted himself into the Finger Lakes region.
I want to be on the road. I want to be meeting people. I want to hear their stories. We watch the news and boom, and it's like there's this whole other story going on underneath all that. And I was like, I want to find out what that story is.
He tells real stories about real people with as few words as possible, but boy, those words are well chosen.
I wish I had something, but nothing ain't fair. Flying like this gets me out of here.
My friend Deborah Chessman is a great folk music lover, and she called me one day and said, I have someone that you would love to meet, I'll bet.
We had Dina Jacobson in our Jewish community, and she's the last Holocaust survivor in our area. I thought it might be important to see if a songwriter would like to meet her and see if there's a song about her story that could be told.
And I'd love for you to meet her, and I think that it would be you would have a lot to talk about. And she was in Auschwitz, Dina, and I'd like to introduce you.
So I was thrilled when she agreed and he agreed to be introduced.
Well, in the morning is when you should walk.
I walk and say,
Yeah. My mom, sister, and I, when we were in Elmira over a Shabbos, we always go to shul together.
Well, even getting out of the chair is exercise.
No matter what was done to her in her life, she's still, the core of her is what she always was. She hasn't lost that. She doesn't always, she cares about it, whether she always believes it or not. They're two different things.
I keep kosher, that's all. Because of my father. He would like me to have kosher.
And you do go to shul each week?
To say Kaddish for him. For the 6 million people. I say Kaddish every Saturday for the 6 million people.
Hello. We all met there. Me, Deborah, Connie, the daughter, and Dina.
Great to see you.
Nice to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time.
Oh, you know, it's been a while.
Oh, and my daughter Josie was with us. I think Josie was 4 at the time.
How is your little girl?
She's taller than me now. Yeah.
There was a little hesitancy on her part, and what were his motives, until she met him, of course, and then I think she was probably charmed like all the rest of us.
I had a baby to take care of.
Yeah, we just spent the whole day together, getting to know each other, and I'm hearing them, Connie and Dina, reminisce about their lives.
I couldn't talk to English. Everybody talked Yiddish. And I learned from my daughter. She was 5 years old. She went to kindergarten.
So she was actually learning and teaching you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And I asked Dina a lot of questions about being from Poland, being in Auschwitz. She pulls up her sleeve and she shows me her tattoo on her arm.
It was not easy.
Right.
I was born in Poland. parents had a big farm in a village. The village was Libechora.
The closest big city, I think, was Krakow.
How was she raised?
Orthodox, Hasidic, very religious. Shabbos was Shabbos. Everything stopped at a certain point on Friday. That's the only family picture she has. This is my grandfather, Yisrael. This is my grandmother. This is my mother's oldest brother, my uncle Shloima, and 3 siblings. This picture was taken before my mother was born. A very joyous kind of household as far as I can tell.
We were 7 children in the house. We were very happy, and we were okay.
In the waning days of one of the most beautiful summers ever, Poland in 1939, in the capital city of Warsaw, tension is growing over the possibility of war.
I had a brother, he was in the Polish army, and he wrote a letter to my father in Hebrew. He said to my father, go away from that village and go hide somewhere. He told my father in the letter. And my father said, I'm not going nowhere. My father said, the German people are very nice. They wouldn't kill a fly. In 2 weeks, he was disappointed, and they took him. The whole family took him, and I don't know where. I don't know where I was. All of a sudden I was alone in the house. And I don't know where they took my parents and my brothers and my sister with her husband and a little boy.
The Nazis did another roundup, and she was caught up in that roundup and loaded on a train with whatever Jewish people were left. Heard it just the way we hear the stories all the time, like cattle into cattle cars. Babies and kids and old people. When they got to Auschwitz, they were divided up, men, women, babies, mothers. In her nightmare, she sees that day, and she sees babies being thrown into the gas chamber or pits and just literally tossed like refuse.
The mothers didn't want to go give it the baby. They said, go with the baby. And she went with the baby to the gas chamber.
As she gets older, I think the nightmares are more prominent than she went for, I think, a number of years where they had lessened, and I think they're back.
How can I believe in God? My parents and my brothers and my sister with her husband and a little boy. I had a brother 11 years, and I don't know how they died, and I wish I would know.
When she was liberated, They were free now. They wandered around. I mean, these were people. You can't wrap your head around something like this. They ended back in Germany, the DP camp in Feldafing, which is the town where the DP camp was.
In the camp, DP camp in Germany, that was a different life. And we had food, and we had the American sense of clothing. And I was there, and Kalman was there.
Kalman Jacobsen, at the time called Kalman Jakobsen.
Then somebody introduced me to Kalman, and I said, well, we need each other.
I'm alone, you're alone. It's a good thing for us to be together. We won't be so alone.
I'm not gonna get in love. You're not gonna tell me you love me because you don't know me, and I don't know you. But we can get together and get married.
They got married in Feldafing, in the DP camp. They were married over 50 years. I was born in Feldafing.
This is a picture of my dad and my mom and me, I think before we left Feldafing, or right after, I'm not sure.
That's the practical side of my mom. And maybe my dad too. He may have had more love and been less practical than my mom. I don't know.
That's how we married.
All right, how we doing? Good?
Yep. You guys ready to roll?
Okay.
Took me about a year. It really was one of the hardest songs I've ever written.
We are rolling.
I wanted to be invisible, and I wanted this story to be about them, not about me.
Yes, my darling. Yes, I used to be little just like you.
So the song is really Dina answering questions that a 4-year-old, so imagining that Connie's 4 years old and Dina's maybe 28 years old as a mother. And the 4-year-old is saying, "Where were you born, Mommy?"
Well, darling, in a Polish town halfway around the world is where I lived when I was just a girl. On a farm in a Polish town halfway around the world. And I had you and a strong will, and we made our home in these New York hills. You sailed with me, and I sailed with you, with a leather suitcase, everything was new.
When I came to Elmira, it was a different life, and a scary life, very scary.
If you don't walk in somebody's shoes, you don't know how the shoes feel. And we don't understand, however hard we try, what it was like to be where she was.
How many kids?
I had 3.
Yes.
I had a boy.
Yes, yes.
Down syndrome.
Yeah, Down syndrome, that's right.
And he died 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing in my life.
I remember the night Joey was born, and it was incredibly emotional and devastating. And but my parents didn't tell me what was happening. Nobody came to talk to me about it. And so I think it was a couple of days when I realized that my brother wasn't like every other brother. I just know that my father was frantic. He was very upset. I didn't see my mother because she was still in the hospital. And in the end, after I don't know how many months, he was brought home, and he was the most beautiful little boy. But there was a lot of tension in the house. My mother and father didn't quite know how to handle this. They were basically newcomers to the world. The society didn't know how to deal with what now we call Down syndrome kids. Then in those days they gave them Mongoloid. Just the name tells you something about the times that he was born into. He was home for 4 years and didn't feed himself. He needed diapering, and my mother was on duty, 24/7. It was very, very difficult. The story goes, the doctor told my mother not to have any more children. Don't have any more children, you might have another one. And my mother tells the story, as you can imagine, having met her and talked to her. She said, "What do you mean I can't have any more children? You can't tell me what to do. If I want to have another baby, I'll have another baby." And she did a year later, Sarah. He was healthy for many, many years until he was 54. He was 54. And until he was, I'd say, 52,
he was good.
He was more than healthy.
You think of Joey now with love?
Oh, God, yes. Had a mean bone.
If you met him 5 years ago and you came back into his life, he'd remember the car you drove, and he'd remember something about you, and he'd hug you as though he'd seen you yesterday. So, you know, what's not to love?
I never knew her son, but I felt that through her daughters and through our relationship that we did know that part of her life and the struggles that she had at that stage in her life too. My name is Brian Odessa, and I'm a world history teacher from Vestal High School in upstate New York. I've always been very, very passionate about human rights issues. Over 20 years ago, when I first started teaching and we came to the period of World War II, I thought, what a wonderful opportunity if I could find somebody in the area to talk about the Holocaust and human rights in my class. And Dina was gracious enough to want to meet me, and we sat here and talked a little bit, and then she decided to come to my class.
Before she came, it was almost like we were just seeing pictures in a book.
Before it was just something you read about.
But Dina was there. She was, it wasn't history, it was happening now.
She really made you feel as though you were isolated, and what happened, what would you do if you were put through this situation?
Kol Nidre night. Nobody knew it's Kol Nidre night, but there was a girl, a rabbi's daughter. She said to us, please be very quiet. I know by heart the Kol Nidre prayer. She started to say the Kol Nidre, the prayer. The door opens up, Gestapo comes in, and he said, you're not gonna pray, we should lose the war. And took her by the hair, straight to the gas chamber.
I remember at one point she was telling us about seeing all the bodies being moved into the mass graves, and she stopped talking and started to get really emotional about it. And of course throughout the room some of the kids were kind of like talking amongst themselves, but once she started to cry, everyone just stopped talking all at once. The room was dead silent. Like, it had a huge effect on everyone, you could tell. It was monumental, just seeing a grown woman break down and cry about something.
I know it's not easy for her to talk about this because, let's face it, this is a period of time in her life where, although I'm sure she can't forget, I'm sure she wishes she could.
I used to come home with red eyes from crying.
Mr. Odessa assured her, he's like, you don't have to talk about it, it's okay, but she pushed on, like she wanted to tell us her story.
Kids always ask to see her tattoo, to see that blue tattoo, and to have kids reach out, hold her arm, and look down and ask questions about when that was done or how that was done.
And it was heartbreaking. 3 years later, that's the moment I remember from that whole experience, because it showed you take a human and just give them a number instead of using their name. They can't live normally anymore and they're referred to as a number. It just broke my heart.
And yes, you're right, my dear, yes, that's a tattoo on my arm.
When Dina was there, sitting in front of me, telling me her story, it took me to a whole different perspective. She survived while millions and millions died, and she's here to tell her story so that we can pass it on to the future.
Honestly, I couldn't even get to a quarter of how brave she was in that situation.
She's stronger than anyone I've known in my life.
When I went up to talk one-on-one with her at the end, I was terrified. Like, how do you tell someone that they have made such an impact on your life just through the terrible experiences that they've gone through?
I felt that. Couldn't figure out what to say, so I was just like looking at her for a couple seconds, and finally the only thing I said was, "You're beautiful." Like I had no idea what to say to her, and she was like, "Oh, thank you," and she gave me a hug, and I was just like, I wish I could say something better than that.
This is probably the most powerful and the most important thing I've done in education in my entire life, because I was able to bring someone who had experienced this human rights violation, the ultimate in human rights violation, a genocide, into the classroom and have kids reach out, meet Dina, ask questions.
These children need education about what will happen, because it can happen again. They have to know what bad people can do.
Maybe the reason she lived was to share her story with the world and help us like feel how she felt, because it's hard.
Thank you so much, Dina.
Yeah, to Dina, it was incredible talking to you. Thank you.
It's really special to us. We'll remember it forever.
Forever.
Forever. I know my children, they want me forever, but I cannot be forever. Nobody can be forever.
You can meet face to face forever.
Survivors have documented this crime in a way that no other event in human history has ever been documented.
They began to tell their stories precisely as we had gone to the world of digital technology, so that you will have a visual record. You can meet face to face forever survivors who experienced an event.
I'm Marty Kerker. Dina is my mother's cousin. It came to my attention that a song had been written about her, and I had no idea that the song existed. And on the internet, I Googled Joe Crookston. I probably had the name of the song, Blue Tattoo, and I got to Joe's website. Eventually, I made it over to YouTube, and I saw actually live performances of him singing the song.
Through a friend of mine and another friend, I connected with this woman. Her name is Dina Jacobson.
And I was just totally blown away. I thought the song was great.
And still I wonder, but I don't know why, I was a lucky one to leave alive.
And I wanted to share it with my family, the rest of the people in our family.
The Vestal Central School District, in recognition for your dedication and commitment to serving the students, staff, parents of the Vestal Schools community.
Yeah. I talk to them, they ask questions.
As time has gone, there are very few survivors left. She's one of the few survivors that's still able to actually tell the story firsthand. So I put together a little slideshow, posted it on YouTube. The slideshow was to Joe's song with archival images from Eastern Europe.
I'm Elisa Rubin in San Diego, California. My mother had sent me an email, I think forwarded from Marty. I thought it was just going to be a nice little song, and I was surprised with how overwhelming the emotion was for me.
Is this a good time to sing a song?
Yeah, it's ideal.
So I watched it and was really moved by it.
So it's a conversation between Connie and Dina.
Yes, my darling, yes, I used to be little just like you. Yes, I played with all the other kids too. Yes, my darling, yes, I used to be little like you. Well, darling, in a Polish town halfway around the world is where I lived when I was just a girl, on a farm in a Polish town halfway around the world. And I had you and a strong will. We made our home in these New York hills. You sailed with me, I sailed with you, with a leather suitcase, everything was new. That's a good question. We sailed to America because there was a war. And when you're older, I promise I'll tell you more. You see, darling, we sailed to America because there was a war. What's a war? Well, it's when people fight and things get really tough. That's all for now, I've answered enough. My sweet daughter, war is when things get really tough. In the New York harbor, as the ship pulled in, I held you close, we were starting over again. You sailed with me, I sailed with you, with a leather suitcase. I was 22. Yes, I had a family, but some people came and took us from our farm. And yes, you're right, my dear, yes. That's a tattoo on my arm. I had a family, but some people came and took us from our farm. And still I wonder, but I don't know why, I was a lucky one to leave alive. You sailed with me, I sailed with you, with a leather suitcase and this blue tattoo.
I was brought to tears, particularly the images on the boat. A mother having to explain to a child this tremendous trauma that she had to go through. For Joe, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he is drawn to Dina's story because of the power in a human struggle and resiliency.
Darling, please, no more questions for today. Why don't you go outside with the other kids and play? Darling, please, no more questions today. And I had you and a strong will. We made our home in these New York hills. You sailed with me, I sailed with you, with a leather suitcase and this blue tattoo.
There you go.
If you think a song can immortalize a story, I mean, he has done that.
This song is a sacred moment in that kind of artistic journey for me.
I love it. It's phenomenal. Joe got along beautifully with my mom. There was a connection, and he's a nice person. I thought it was a beautiful experience.
It's not just her story, it's like every woman's story who survived the Holocaust.
That hopefully will be heard by many people who will learn and want to learn. It's fantastic.
This is one of the stories of history that need to be included among the many.
And what we have to do is to take a particular story, preserve it, use it to enlarge human dignity and human decency, to plead for human morality.
Almost every year for the last 23 years, she's been speaking in schools around central New York.
Do you feel that was important that you did that?
Yes,
Do you feel
it was very important.
It was worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yes.
the time comes, you cannot do it anymore. And the time is now.
She has already asked me, when are we going in this year? And at 92, God bless her.
She is a remarkable person. If she decides that she's done it enough, then, you know, she probably has. But we can speak for her if she allows us to.
And there's also the song.
And the song is going to speak for a really long time.
When people hear it, there's something there that's universal, that is human, maybe that's just it resonates on a universal human level.
Are we good?
Still rolling.